morning, and I had received a message from one of my students. One of my students sent me a message that said, "Professor Hicks, my little brother thinks they're going to send my mom and dad away. I need you to tell me this isn't going to happen." And I read the message, and I sat down in a chair, and I thought to myself, what does it say about us that I can't comfort this young man? That I can't offer him the words that he wants to hear? And I questioned myself and asked myself, what role did I have in the world that I had woke up in? What could I do as a husband, as a father, as a teacher? How could I, one man, make a difference? How could I best serve my community? And as I questioned and I doubted, I realized one thing. I'm a teacher. It is not just what I do, it is who I am, it is in my soul. And in moments of trouble, we turn to that which we do well, and by God, I will teach. I was reminded of a quote by Basil Matori, who said, "Discontent is the first step in progress. No one knows what is in him until he tries, and many would never try if they were not forced to." I took election night as the moment that I was forced to be better than I had been in the past. To be a better man, to be a better teacher, to be a better father, a better husband, a better member of my community. And so as I prepared to have the honor to speak before you, I thought to myself, what do I say to a group of people when I am asked to speak on a community that is unified? How do I find words to say what I want to say, but be true to the man that I am? And so, as I sat and I thought about what it is that I would say, about the words that I would do my best to deliver to you, I came up with 5 things that I believe are the key to the community being unified. These are certainly not the only things we need to do. But I ask you to think about them. I ask you to consider them. Most importantly, I ask you to look inside yourself and think, what will your legacy be when you leave this place? We have no control over who lives and who dies and who writes our story ultimately at the end. But we do have the opportunity to make choices that allow us to dictate the words that go upon the pages of the story of our life. Yes. The first thing we must do to have a unified community is we must start speaking the same language. One of the biggest hurdles that we face is that we talk about problems and we talk about solutions, but we're never talking about the same things. How do we achieve progress if we've never defined what progress is? How do we find success if what success is to you is different than what it is to me? We must speak a common language. We must recognize that progress is not completion. We have made progress. We cannot become complacent because complacency leads to stagnation. Stagnation leads to death. We have made remarkable strides. We have elected black councilmen. We had the first African American president. And yet we still have a ways to go. The community must speak with one voice towards one goal. I'm not saying for one moment that you have to give up your own individual agendas, but we have to figure out a way to come up with something that we are working towards that is all of our end game. Too often we get caught up in our own selfish desires because of the small moments that consume our own lives. We must be able to look beyond ourselves if we are truly going to be a community that is unified. The second thing we must do, we must know our allies. We talk about community with never really talking about who makes up the community. And I'm just going to be real for a moment, it's not everybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It can't be everybody.
That's right.
But it must transcend race, gender. It has to.
Yeah.
It is time to stop disparaging those who do not look like us, but who are willing to fight with us.
Yes.
We have to strategically coordinate. It means that sometimes as a community, we have to say no. Sometimes as a community, we have to take a stand on a principle that matters to us that other people don't get. One of the most powerful tools that we have are the very principles that guide our lives. No one can ask us to compromise those. Nobody can ask you to take the principles that guide you and make them secondary. If they are primary to your life, live your life in a way that shows that they are primary. We don't have to win every battle, but we do have to win sometimes. And if there are forces that stand in the way of our opportunity to win, sometimes we have to push those forces aside and move forward anyway. Now, while we must recognize our allies, we also have to acknowledge and recognize our enemies. You have to know your opposition. You have to know what they look like. You have to know what they think and what they believe. You have to understand what they think and believe about you. You have to be strategic with how you approach those individuals. I tell my students all the time, there's a distinction between acquaintances and friends. I know a lot of people, I don't have a lot of friends.
That's right. Yeah.
It is critical that we retain our skepticism. There are many wolves in sheep's clothing. People that extend a hand out here because they're holding the knife to stab you in the back.
My Lord. My Lord.
I would ask that we be diligent. That we be diligent in not only protecting ourselves, but protecting one another. For what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? The fourth thing we have to do, we have to educate ourselves. We stood on the precipice of maybe one of the most important elections in the history of our country. And folks who look like me sat at home. The people who had the most to lose sat in their homes, hoping and wishing that other people would bear the burden that came with making the sacrifice to get out and get yourself involved in what's happening. There is no white horse coming to save us. The hero that you have been looking for has looked you back in the mirror every day of your life since you have been born. Without an educated community, we have no idea how to define the obstacles that we are rising up against. We have no idea to figure out what we will gain and what we will lose. We have to recognize what is in our best interests. For most of our lives, we have been told not to be selfish. We have been told to wait, but wait turned into never. And so if there has ever been a moment in our history for people to be selfish, the moment is upon us now. And when I say selfish, I'm not talking about simply being concerned about your own life. But I am saying that the obligation that you have to other people is stronger than the obligation that you have to yourself. Rita Pearson, one of my favorite educators, noted that a child deserves a champion, an adult who will not give up on them, who understands the power of education and insists that they become the best they could possibly be. We need men and women in this room to be champions for the children in this community. I've told people for most of my life that I've been a safe black person. I'm a black person that you can take home, show to your grandparents, and they high-five you because you have a black friend. I have been that person my entire life. I have worn that badge proudly. But we now face a moment where it's not enough to do lip service to the idea that things will get better. We just need to be patient. We just need to bide our time. Have we not been patient?
Come on now.
Have we not waited on the doorstep of justice, hoping that someone would open the door and allow us to walk in, wondering why the doors never opened when we had the power to open the doors the entire time? Nobody can sell us better than we can. Nobody can explain what we bring to this community better than the people who are sitting in these pews, who can tell stories of the things that you have seen and you have done that would inspire children who look like me, who don't look like me, to stand up and do great things in their life because you have done them before. Marian Wright Edelman said that education is for improving the lives of others and for leaving your community and world better than you found it. If we are going to make progress, we have to be educated to understand where we came from, to know why it is so important that we get where we're going. The final and most important thing is the recognition that your community is about more than just you.
Yes, sir. Amen.
I remember when I was growing up, my dad would tell me that the weight of history rested upon my shoulders. And I never knew what he meant, but it got on my nerves. Right, I remember we stood in my garage. I remember it like it was yesterday. We stood in the garage. And my father said, son, every time you go out, every action that you take, you are making it easier or harder for people like us to succeed. And I have worked to live my life in a way that makes it easier for people like me to succeed. There are some of us who don't recognize that the weight of history lies upon our shoulders and others who actively ignore it. But if not you, who? If not now, when? I'll close with this thought. I struggle with whether or not I'm good at what I do. I worry that I look in the mirror and I'm not the man that I think that I am. I worry that I'm not the teacher that I think that I am, or the husband that I think that I am, or the father that I think that I am. And there are moments where I'm fearful. Where I'm fearful of how I'll explain to my children about this world that they live in. My 5-year-old came up to me the other night. He said, "Daddy, is it true that Donald Trump doesn't like black people?" And I said, "Nah, baby, that's not true. That's not true." And he looked at me and he said, "Daddy, are they going to take you away?" And I said, "No, baby, Daddy's not going anywhere." But I thought in that moment about what my legacy would be. I have been spit on. I've been called names. I have been beaten. I have had my credentials questioned in ways that other people's have not been. And yet still I fight. I have been marginalized and made to feel small. I have been laughed at. I have been made fun of. And still I will fight. And I'll fight so that my son's children never have to ask him that question. I will fight because my grandmother, born in a field, hidden from a slave master, I fight for her. I fight for my white students so that they understand that the weight of history rests upon their shoulders as much as it does mine. I fight for my Hispanic students so that they realize that their fight is my fight, that their freedom is my freedom. I fight because the stakes are too high not to. I fight because the good Lord gives me breath, wakes me up every morning, and gives me the privilege to be able to fight for others. I fight so that one day I may stand before my children and tell them, "Baby, we are free at last, thank God Almighty